Welcome to Artcasters, episode 408. We have Kathy Moore Wilson here with us tonight, old friend of the show from way back in the day when she and I used to do 48-hour art check together and those types of things. And we will get to her in a moment. But before we do, you can find my stuff at CoreyKerr.com. And if you want to check out any of my animations, you can go to CoreyKerr.com/animations. And I am mainly doing stuff on Substack right now. So if you want to look at the book that I am writing live and releasing unedited into the wild, you can see that there at CoreyKerr.com/email. And the other stuff I'm doing, which is mainly YouTube deep dives into design principles. And so I've been working for about 3 weeks on one on contrast, and it might be one of the most informative videos I've ever made. So that's coming soon. So if you want to see that, make sure that you're subscribed, you're on my channel, so ring the bell and that type of stuff. Josh, where can we find your stuff?
Yeah, so you can find Jacob's Apartment at bookstores everywhere. I believe the last I checked, there was only one copy left on Amazon, so be the person to order that one. It's a wonderful graphic novel about basically doomed romance between two polar opposites, Jacob and Sarah, who are drawn together due to loss in a family, and find their dreams and reality interweave in what's like if you took Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind, put it in a blender with Ghost World, and you like that feeling. That's Jacob's Apartment. And then there's two stories, which is my indie autobiographical comic that dissects faith and mental illness and tries to destigmatize hard conversations about mental health. So pick that up as well. Yeah. And then also I stream online as Joshua Kimball. So that's it.
Cool. And Scott, where can we find your stuff?
Yeah, you can find my stuff at circworks.com, where I have my comic book Young and the Dead. And since Josh was holding up some of his artwork, I'm going to hold up some of his artwork too. This is the variant cover that Josh did for my comic. So I still have some variant covers up there. They're going fast because I just did a show, sold through some. And once these are gone, they're gone. So, but I also have, the standard issues and everything for my comic book Young and the Dead. It's a kids versus zombie adventure story. Just think Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. And other than that, I've got digital products that will help you create comics better, faster, more efficiently. And I have a YouTube channel where currently I'm taking vintage things from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, figuring out how they work and recreating them and adding kind of my own spin on it. So really fun videos. You can go check those out on my YouTube channel, Circworks Art Labs on YouTube.
I just want to congratulate the three of us right now, because if you look, none of us took longer than 60 seconds. That might be a new record.
That's a record, yeah.
For this particular group, we are the most long-winded people ever. Kathy, would you tell us just a little bit about yourself and where we can find your stuff, and then we'll kind of jump into the topic.
No pressure on the amount of time I take, huh? You can
None at all. Just keep it under 60 seconds or you'll ruin everything.
I do like how you set that up for Corey, where you're like, it's the elevator pitch. Go.
That was totally unintentional.
I have a history of graphic design and a history of doing animations in After Effects, but what I do now is paintings and illustrations of animals, and I just recently dipped my toe into doing illustrations for our first book called Boopable, which is how Corey and I were working together and what we're going to talk about tonight. My website is pendragonartstudios.com. You can also find me at kathymorewilson.com. I think I have 4 URLs at this point, but anyway, so that's what I do. I paint and I illustrate animals.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if you guys haven't seen Kathy's stuff, you gotta go check it out, because it is beautiful. I mean, it is really it's would you call it mostly watercolor? I know that there's some other types of paints.
It's a mix of watercolor, color pencil, digital, pen and ink, and digital. I sort of work in all of those. The only thing I don't really work in is oil. And other than that, it depends on what I feel like that day. So
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, so I thought it'd be interesting to have Kathy on. Kathy took over for Josh way back when. I don't know how long ago we did that, but we did a few hundred episodes, Josh and I, of 48-hour art check, and then some things changed for Josh, and he needed to bow out for a bit, and Kathy took over. And that was super fun because Kathy and I went to SCAD together, got our master's degrees, and I hadn't really had a chance to talk to her much until that point, and it was just great. Just fond memories of doing that show with you. And let's see. So Marianne Redmond, she is a musician. She's a singer. She does a lot of different things, and she reached out to
photographer.
Kathy, photographer as well. Yeah, she does the calendars. She has a magic bench where these foxes just show up like every night to her bench to like hang out, and she does a whole calendar, and I believe she donates a significant portion or all of the proceeds of that to animal care and shelters and things. And anyway, great
She
person.
does. She's awesome.
She and you knew each other somehow, and she reached out to you at a time when you were kind of busy to do an animation. You mentioned my name to her, and that was the animation that I did a little while ago. Be Mine with the airships and that type of thing, and
Which is awesome. It was awesome.
Fun. That was really fun. I was a little surprised, to be honest, because I was like, I'm just going to pitch something super weird, and she went for it. She got excited about it, and I wasn't. Most people don't get excited about that level of weird, but she was into it. So she's a really fun client. Kathy, do you want to tell us real quick, about the book Boopable and kind of how that started, and then we can jump into the animation?
Well, she and I got to know each other. Back when I lived in Washington, D.C., I've lived in Colorado for 3 years now. We had a lot of people in common. I know a lot of people in the theater industry and the music industry, and she is a singer. And actually, it was the woman who cut my hair who told me about this person named Marianne. She said, "You love animals, she loves animals, you've got to get together with her." And we got to be friends. And then when I moved out here and she approached me, I did a few paintings of her photographs of the animals that she sees in her backyard. She said, "I have an idea for a book. And would you be willing to illustrate it?" And she'd written a poem about all these different animals. And a friend of hers had commented about how when animals are real close and you get up to their nose, and they call it, if you Google boopable, a lot of people know what booping is, and just booping the nose. And she wrote this poem, and she asked me if I'd illustrate it, and we were going to do a book. And so I said, sure. And I started working. I had to convert the paintings to fit the size of the book. So I had to, in some cases, make the paintings longer, or in some cases I lopped off the ears, but we made it work. And we created this book. And she worked hard to get it published. And she was talking with different publishers and finally got that moving along. And I sort of just waited. I know that it takes a long time to get a book published. From beginning to end, it's a long process. And then she approached me again and asked me if she could ask you to do an animation for this, to promote the book. And that's when I said, well, I'm also an animator, and it's going to be really hard to animate these animals unless I prepare them for Corey, because otherwise it's going to be really difficult. So I said, maybe Corey and I could work together. And I don't know, the rest is history.
Yeah. And I will say, we're gonna talk a lot about the animation, kind of the process. I think it's kind of an interesting way of doing things. if anybody is looking to promote a book, I think having an animated music video that goes along with your book is maybe one of the most creative ways I've seen to do that. It's a pretty cool thing to do. But yeah, so that was it. I thought now that we've been on the air for long enough for people to kind of show up, I thought it'd be kind of fun to show the music video, and then we can kind of talk about it. Scott had a couple questions and stuff, and we can kind of get in and maybe like how we did it. On this show, most of the people that watch are artists themselves of some ilk, and so we can get way into the weeds on process and stuff, and everybody kind of digs that. So here is the music video that we made, that Kathy and I made for Marianne's song.
Boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom, boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom, boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom, boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom. Would you be shocked if you booped a fox? Would you laugh if you booped a giraffe? Boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom, boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom. Would you be smitten if you booped a kitten? Would you be scared if you pooped a bear? Boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom, boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom. Would you feel lucky if you pooped a puppy? Would you find it funny if you pooped a bunny?
Do we boop because we love or do we love because we boop? We don't know, we don't know.
They're just so boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom, boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom. Would you swoon if you booped a raccoon? If you were beside her, would you boop a tiger? Boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom, boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom, boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom, boop boom boom, so very very boop boom boom.
I think that's great. It's funny because you see so many children's books out there, and it's just like, but this, honestly, if I was a publisher, I would pick this up like that. I just think it has so much potential to just go create. I mean, it's for one, it's interactive, which is great for children's books. It's simple, it's sweet. I mean, the illustrations are beautiful, Kathy.
Thank you.
And that's without even the song and everything that goes along with it. I'm just thinking of the book itself, but I mean, Corey played that for me a while ago, and I was like, I think this has tons and tons of potential.
Oh, definitely. and Scott, I'll read it to my youngest, and she boops each animal every time.
It's funny because I was watching
awesome.
with my girlfriend who has that same kind of running gag with her goddaughter about the whole booping thing. They do that all the time. So it's a thing, and it's just like, I mean, it's great. I love it. Yeah. It's like one of those things like, oh man, I wish I would have thought of that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I thought it might be fun to show. Let me do this. So Kathy has beautiful artwork, and then what I do to it. Oh no, it's showing the wrong one. Hold on. Let me switch that. I go in and I do weird stuff. So it's not. Give me a minute. Dang it. Why is this not working?
So yeah, while you're loading that, I
Yeah.
am really curious to see some of the process because I saw a lot of like subtle and then not so subtle sort of warping and stuff of
Uh-huh.
the animate like of the illustrations. Some of which I kind of understood having done After Effects a little bit. Some of which I totally don't, and I'm really curious to kind of dig into.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, just little subtle things like the little like there's a scene where there's grass in the background and it's all kind of subtly moving, and I love it. It's like it's really a neat way to kind of I think honor Kathy's work without like over animating it, right?
Yeah.
Who did the
Yeah,
typography?
yeah, that's a good question.
For the animation, that was mostly me.
Okay,
That
yeah,
was
it's just
mostly Corey.
it's so seamless. It's so seamless.
Yeah,
I mean, it works really well with the watercolor affect onto the it's great. I mean, that whole thing is just
And the watercolor transitions, those are all Corey.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Those were kind of fun too. Let me see if this works now. There we go. Did it. Okay. So
Oh, the bunny.
I thought I've got two here, and this might be what you're talking about. What you're talking about, Josh. But I don't know. I like doing weird stuff, and so I have these are smear frames.
Oh yeah.
And so when the bunny shakes its head, I went in and I took the painting and I painted a bunch of different head shake smear frames, and so I have what is that 8 or so different layers that like make up that one shake that lasts for half a second. But anyway, I thought that payoff was really fun, and the
that
grass and the
technique
scene and
works so
everything.
great.
it looks like so much more organic than
Yeah.
if you just tilted it using like because you could do that
Exactly.
movement, but without that smear frame, it would just look like very PBS. I don't
Right.
know.
And
Yeah.
what happens a lot of the time is people will use the motion blur effect in After Effects, and it's a terrible effect. It's kind of like just makes everything weirdly fuzzy for a minute. And this type of thing is much more accurate to the actual human experience because we see things kind of like do that type of like elongation and stuff as they move really quickly, but we don't see stuff get like fuzzy. It's not
Yeah.
like it like a Gaussian blur is put on it or whatever. And so I always hated the motion blur, but I
Pull
thought
up
those
that
were
cat again too, because it also just makes for like insanely fascinating abstract art that we're seeing at like a millisecond.
yeah.
You know?
So I really like so I do a couple of things as I'm doing smear frames, but one is I will whatever the direction is that it's moving. So this is why storyboards are really important. Like we needed to understand like the direction that these animals are going to be doing stuff. And I specifically watched a lot of kind of footage of these animals. I have a couple cats, so I didn't really need to watch cats, but I remember watching videos of bunnies, trying to figure out like what type of animation could we do with this. And that's when the bunny kind of like did this like head shake really quick, and then you saw their nose. And so in the animation you can see like the nose is constantly going, but then there's every once in a while there's just this really interesting explosion of movement. And I thought like cats kind of have that kind of mischievous nature to them, and so having it like just pop up. Same thing with the raccoon. You also have the raccoon and the fox. I tried to go with a little bit more movement that would be related to kind of the sneaky or playful or mischievous kind of nature that a lot of those types of animals have. But and then the way that you do that is you try to focus on like what are the highest value contrast points of this thing that you're doing the smear frame on, and then those are the things where you leave half of it behind and then stretch it and you leave the other half into the thing. And so I basically just there's maybe about 3 frames, so about what is that, like a tenth of a second, where this is on the screen, and it moves up during those 3 frames, and then I warp the painting that Kathy did to be narrow, and then I have it kind of settle in and bounce, and so it goes up, and it kind of bounces back into place, and so it's a little bit of that, but I agree, Josh. I love the dogs. The dogs also agree.
Hold on, sorry.
They saw the cat and just
Right.
it was over.
Freaked out.
Yeah, but I love there's this little piece of abstract weirdness that most people wouldn't recognize that they're looking at.
Yeah.
And there's those little artifacts that kind of show up. And anyway, I like it better than cheating it with the checkbox that a lot of other people do.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really curious about smear frames because it does look. I was trying to figure out what it was that was making the movements so kind of smooth, and I think that might be one of the big things.
Yeah. So smear frames were a bunch of them. I'm trying to see if I have. I think I do have some of these. But yeah, smear frames are a bunch of them. But Scott, you were asking Kathy before we started, and I was like, no, save that for the air. Let's talk Kathy really quick. Can you just take the paintings, the still paintings that you did for a book and just animate them? Like what kind of goes into getting them ready, the months of work that we did?
One of the things I had to do, because they were paintings. So in order to make them work, I needed to separate them out from the background.
Yeah.
And in some cases, the background that was in the book was not going to work in an animation. And because a lot of my paintings, I've got lots and lots of little detail fur.
Yeah.
So what I needed to do was, in some cases, what I did is I went into Photoshop. I took the final digital file, took it into Photoshop, pulled as much as I could of the animal onto another layer, and then I just had to start erasing and painting all those little, there you go. And Corey sent that to me. That was the first one we did. And I had to basically separate out the nose, the mouth, the ears. I don't think I ended up separating the eyes for the giraffe, but I did for all the others because I made the different. I actually like painting eye blanks, so I painted in some cases 2, in some cases 3 versions of the eyes that could be flipped back and forth to make them look like they were blinking.
Yeah, so every eye blink that you see, and this might be an interesting part to kind of show what we did here. We had a Trello board, and on this Trello board, we broke down every different type of movement. Because Marianne, and we won't go into specifics, but here, like for example, here's my reference for the head shake, right? And so I watched a video, and then I took screenshots every major keyframe of the motion, and then I tried to match, and it's, I mean, if you look, especially that one all the way on the right, it's not that off. Their faces, especially like giraffes and rabbits, are pretty malleable. They move quite a bit. Giraffes are like the coolest. Like they're just such a weird. They look like they're melting all the time when
I love giraffes.
They're great. But
they just have such fascinating like cartilage, but not a lot of bone in like their mouth. Like, so it's, you're right. They are kind of like wobbly and like wonky in kind of a really cool way. Yeah.
And so what we did is we went through each painting, because this one thing I will say is if I ever do something like this again, I'll want to do it with somebody like Kathy, because she is an After Effects animator professionally. She did that as her career, and she's the one that illustrated the things. And so I didn't have to do like the okay, let me explain how this works. I just had to say, I think this part needs to move, so let's figure out, like, let's paint the rest of this. And she was like, yeah, right. And it wasn't like I had to go in and say, all of the things, like for example, for those of you that don't know, like, if you take a look at the giraffe, right? The only way that we could make the ears move is by actually having, so they end right here, right? In the painting, it ends right here and it ends right here. And so to actually make that move, we would have to paint all of the rest of this over here on this orange line, so that I would have a pivot point and it didn't break.
Yeah.
And so anyway, when you go into something like this, it's like so many different things, so many different layers. I mean, this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different layers just to make up the head of this animal. And each one of those needed to be either extended, where Kathy is cutting it out with polygonal lasso tool and then painting the stuff that's hidden, or just completely recreated from scratch. Anyway, so yeah, it took a long time.
Probably one of the things that took me the longest was the fox ears, because you had the ears flip. So I had to paint 3 different versions of the ears so they could flip.
So as I was looking at, I'm just going to pull this up while we're talking, but as I was looking at footage of foxes, I don't know. I think that this is valuable, but it's also easily going to be one of those things that's like, Corey goes down weird rabbit holes and wastes a lot of time. But
No, it's good.
when a fox emotes in specific ways, they do things with their face and with their ears. And so I was watching, and when a fox is, when they flatten their ears, they're about to be very aggressive physically. When they rotate their ears backwards, that's a sign that they're being playful. And so when they're playing with each other, I was watching these videos of these fox cubs kind of roughhouse, and I noticed that they kept rotating their ears backwards. Well, like the rest of the animals that we used, most of it is like a pivot. Like you have a layer and it just pivots on an anchor point. But that one, I was like, we should pitch this, but I'm sorry, because you're probably going to have to paint like quite a few different frames of that rotation, because it's not like you can just rotate it in After Effects. This is a different painting than this, this, than this, than this, than this. And so, yeah, I feel bad for that one, but it turned out great.
No, don't feel bad. It was a challenge, though. It really was. I looked at videos myself of foxes. I seem to remember most of Halloween weekend working on that, just trying to get those. And I repainted them several times because, nope, that's not good enough. Nope, that's not good enough. I got to do this right. I think that's one of the things you and I both are perfectionists, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. But
it produces good quality stuff if you don't let it get in the way of finishing. Yeah, so I think it's good.
I think that's fascinating because, like, one of the bigger challenges for a lot of animators outside of just gravity and stuff like that, like a lot of the basics, is like doing an accurate full rotation, and that's just drawing. So like to like fully paint an accurate rotation in that way that really is quite a challenge, because it has to be on model. But then not only on model, your brush strokes can't vary like wildly. That sounds like a headache. Like, or an earache, I should say.
Yeah. It's pretty challenging. This is the reference that I gave to Kathy. And so I found a video of a fox doing this. The challenge that we found, though, was that the angle was different. And the fox, you can tell. And this might not seem like a big deal until you're trying to paint. You're trying to get it. Kathy's work is so beautiful, but it's also incredibly detailed. And so, as the fox looks down, the entire snout, the shape of the eyes, the forehead, and the placement of the ears changes. So it's not like we could just take this and paint over the top of it.
Mm.
So we had to take the idea of this, understand what was really going on, and then translate that into a completely different perspective so that it worked with the painting that we had.
Mm.
Yeah,
So-
that's true.
Yeah. But that was a fun one. And I think, let me see if I could do this. Yeah. So I did, Jim, who I've also collaborated with, is in the chats, and he will laugh as I say this because I forced him to do this type of stuff a lot. But I did. Let me see if I can pull this up. I did an animatic of that ear turn to try to get like the timing correct and see how many different things we needed. So let me pull that up really quick. So this is going to go over here like that. Okay. And then zoom in. Yeah. Okay. So like this. And so this is the animatic. And so you can kind of see that ear turn. But again, this was based off of the video and isn't accurate to the painting. And so even with this, Kathy, you still had to kind of translate this to work with the painting. But yeah. But anyway, I highly recommend it. If you guys are doing collaboration, passing notes back and forth like this really, really helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Also both being familiar with the programs and like what you're trying to accomplish is really good too. Cause like if somebody's never worked with animation, just the knowledge of, like you were saying with the ear, or a lot of people won't realize, like, let's say you're going to have eyes separated from a face or whatever. It's still good to have like the area under the eyes, like still colored and stuff. Like, it's not like these are things you can just go chop, 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 chop. And like little, unless you're doing like fun, like Monty Python style animation.
Sure. Yeah. Terry Gilliam can get away with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, that is like that would be a huge advantage to be able to speak the same language with that. So you kind of know what's expected and not have to over explain. Like you could send that animatic and be like, here you go. This is kind of what we're thinking. And Kathy will be like, aha, Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. Anyway. So talk to me, Kathy, about kind of your process and tell us a little bit about, you can either start with the paintings and how you kind of, do those, or you can jump into how you kind of were breaking it down with the animation.
I don't know. One of the things that was really advantageous is at least we were moved, because it started out as a print product, and then it was going to video. It would have been a lot harder doing it the other way around, because at least I was going from 300 DPI down to 72 DPI. Yeah. So I didn't have to, make a bunch more pixels. But there was also the aspect ratio. The book was definitely not the same aspect ratio as a video screen. Plus, I wanted to give you room to move the animal around. So I had to make things bigger than ordinary, but was still, I think we worked sort of at 150. I can't remember now, but, what I did, I think I mostly just, I separated out the painting from the background. And I also, in some cases, like in the case of the giraffe, the original painting which is actually hanging in my bedroom right now, his neck, her neck, because the giraffe's name is Savannah, by the way, after Scad. The giraffe's neck was not long enough. So I had to add a lot more neck to but because of that, you were able to do that awesome thing with Savannah bouncing back and forth, which was so cool. Fortunately, in every animal, it was a little different. In the case of the ears of the giraffe, they were behind the head.
Right.
So that wasn't nearly as difficult as it was. And obviously the lashes are separate, but I think most of the time when I draw animals, I draw them face first. I
Right.
mean, that's sort of what I do. That's my style. But there was the bear. The bear was 3/4. So the
Mhm.
bear was a little more complicated, and then trying to get the bear's mouth to work right.
Yep.
And
The
that
bear
was
was
tough.
interesting.
But
Yeah.
the bear, yeah. But it still worked. He looks a little, but even the original painting, he looks a little funky. So he looks that bear's name is Oberon, by the way.
I
So,
I
don't
out
name
of
I
all my
don't
curiosity,
animals.
why
So
was it just in more detail? Like, why was it different with the bear?
he was
Other the
3/4.
3/4, and then what was the solution to that? Like, what was the biggest challenge of that? And then what was the solution you guys came up with?
In the case of the bear, the biggest problem was drawing that mouth so it looked proper. It looked correct.
Oh, okay,
Um,
okay,
that's Oberon, and doing his eyes was fine. I mean, I knew because it was a 3/4 view, the eye on the right is going to be smaller,
yeah,
and that's
Mhm.
okay. But what I was really concerned about was getting that mouth right. And I don't know if, I think I presented Corey with some challenges with that, but he made it work. In the case of the bear also, because some of these were paintings I'd already done. In some
yeah.
cases,
Yeah.
I created brand new paintings for the book, but in other cases, they were paintings I'd already done. In the case of Oberon, I had to extend his neck and his body because otherwise it wouldn't fit. First, it wouldn't fit in the book, so I had to do that. And then doing it again was fitting it into to make it work inside the animation.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
but fortunately, I really love drawing fur. I
Yeah,
did a lot of drawing of fur. That's a lot of pixels, but it was just like draw, draw, draw. And it was all done. I'm glad I'm a fairly good digital painter because doing it back in the original painting and then scanning it and doing it, I was able to just paint it within Photoshop and within
Mm.
Corel Painter. So, and there's the raccoon, and
I've got a surprise for everybody. Let me see if this is something that you normally wouldn't see, but I don't mind embarrassing myself. But you mentioned the giraffe. Here's how I got the timing of that correct.
of course.
oh, that's
So
awesome.
so
Oh, that's great, Corey.
I played the song and then I'm like, what kind of movement would be
Oh,
good
that's
with this?
awesome.
Yeah,
And then I used that to get like how many frames and where the keyframes would be because for me,
Oh,
I'm not a
that's
musician.
fantastic.
It's
yeah.
very difficult. It's very difficult to figure out like when stuff should happen because
Oh,
some
that's
people I feel like it's
brilliant.
And so
I think that's
I,
brilliant. I mean, Disney
Oh, it
used to do that
really
all the
is.
time. So,
oh yeah.
like for movement and stuff. Like, I mean, even when you're sketching and stuff, sometimes just looking in a mirror or whatever. But like, that makes perfect sense to me for timing
I
because
have
it's like,
s-
why
Yeah.
wouldn't you? Yeah,
I have seen videos of old Disney animators doing just
Uh-huh.
that.
Yep.
yeah.
Just that.
Yeah.
Um, Either watching another person move or looking at themselves in the mirror. So that
I
is
I
classic.
I should do a little little side by side analysis to see how well I matched it.
Yeah. See
But
see
yeah.
how well the giraffe mimicked your movements.
Right. Yeah, because you just say do this, and then the computer does it for you. So
Mhm.
that's I said, hey, computer, do this. Yeah, just
Computer enhance.
I think I'm trying to remember. I can't remember exactly. I think I did an animatic of that based on. So I was doing that, and I think I went in and I know what I did. I went in and I tracked by drawing over the top of it where my nose and the edges of my face were, and
Oh, wow.
that gave me enough of like the head turn.
Mm.
And then I did the little cross lines to
Mhm.
show me like how much rotation, and so I measured on that, like, okay, I need to go 13 degrees to the left on this frame, and then I need to go negative 27 degrees to the right on this frame. Anyway, I don't trust myself enough to eyeball that, so it was. But I like how that one turned out. I thought it was kind of fun.
Mhm.
I have a question about the ear. Are you going to
Yes.
get into that? Just how they warp. Like, there's
Oh,
like
which
this
ones?
little bend that you're doing on, like, it's on the elephant ears where they kind of.
Oh,
Oh,
the elephant
warp.
was separate. The elephant
Yeah.
was a special situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And then
elephant
also
was-
the giraffe, same thing. Like his ears kind of have like a warp kind of thing. Is that like a warp effect? How are you doing this warping?
So a lot of that is puppet pin. So let me get to some. so you
Like
can
I think the
see-
rabbit does it too.
Like right here, you
Yeah,
can see
there you go.
the rabbit. It does
That's
that, and
puppet
so
pin, isn't it?
yeah, and so there's a tool called the advanced puppet pin, and it gives you the ability to put a mesh on top, and so you can say pin here, here, and here,
Uh-huh.
and then there's 3 different controls on that where you can scale, which will make it bigger or smaller. You can rotate, which will bend it at the point of the pin, and then it bends the mesh around it depending on how influenced that pin is. So you can control how much it influences the mesh. And then there's position where you can move it. And so this one is using all 3 of those, and so it gets a little bit smaller as it whips down. And then it also obviously rotates and changes position. And so it breaks a little bit. If you look too closely, you can see right here at the crown that I broke it a little bit. But I figured it was fast enough that nobody would notice. So yeah, there's that, and then
I never
and then
noticed.
Also,
Yeah, I don't
that's
think
good.
anybody. Yeah, it is very quick. So
yeah, if it's on the screen for two 24ths of a second, usually people will notice.
hey Corey, real quick,
mhm.
these transitions, these watercolor transitions. Is this what we were talking about? Like it's almost like a year ago or something, where we were talking about how to do watercolor effects. I
Yeah,
can't
so-
remember, but I thought we were kind of playing with that.
Yeah,
on chat.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
that took me forever.
Yeah.
So what I did was I did 2 different things. If I'm being honest, I don't like how they turned out, but I painted in Photoshop frame by frame with a watercolor brush, dozens of different animations. And then I took each frame of those and exported it and brought it into After Effects. And I used those as track mats on the different compositions to go from one to the other. And because they're track mats, you can mix them. And so I can stack them. And so I have the one that goes like lower left to upper right. I have one that goes down. I have one that goes over. I have one that swirls around the screen. I've got another one that does like a sinusoidal wave. I've got all those different things. And then just to vary it, I would stack them up. So that maybe you go up and to the left as it's also closing down, or you go in from the left and the right as it's swirling. Just so there isn't a single transition in this animation that is the same, and and all of them are hand painted.
I love it.
And so yeah, that's not like an effect that we bought or like a button that we push. And I can pull that up too, but yeah, that did take a while. So let me see if I don't know if I can find those watercolor transitions, but I've got the After Effects file open. Give me a moment here and I will show you. There we go. Okay. This one? Yep. Okay. So let's go here like this. So you can see like this was a test. I'll make myself bigger. But if you go into this one, you can see right here that each one of these is a hand printed digital frame. So it goes one frame at a time. And then where it's black, it shows, and where it is transparent, it doesn't show. And so I just do this, and then I put it on top, and then you can just have it you have it transition from one to the other like that.
I love it.
And so yeah, so each transition just has a little bit of that kind of hand painted thing each time, and so you can kind of see
I
the
think
swirl one there.
it happens so seamlessly. Yeah, I think you pulled it off. Yeah.
Thanks. I also tried to make the background drift because it was watercolor, and so I tried to make it so that like there was an aspect of, oh no, I'm just big, that there was an aspect of like water, so there's always a bit of a drifting effect in a lot of those different animal scenes, so that it's just not, because we basically used the same composition as the books. I mean, some altered bit, but I didn't just want it to look like you were watching a still page. And so we incorporated a lot of that type of stuff. Some of that was out of necessity because we had planned for the animations of each animal, and then once we got into this, there were huge parts of the song that were like a bridge or a chorus or whatever, and we hadn't really thought of like, there's just this instrumental riff that goes on for like 10 seconds right here. And so some of those we had to kind of think like, I don't know, what are we going to do here or whatever.
I remember one day when we were talking and you said, I think I figured out what to do with those riffs because we've got all this space and what do we do? And you did that whole watercolor transition and it filled that space perfectly.
Yeah. So that one I think is right here. And so you have, oops, come back. I just played I layered about 8 of those watercolor transitions on top of each other. So you're just watching some of Kathy's background paintings, and then I just layered those transitions on the top. But anyway, these smear frames were fun as well, the fox ones. So I did 3 different types of smear frames for the fox. You can kind of see those are fun. Anyway, going in different directions. Yeah. So and here's some more of that puppet pin. You can see the deformation of the ears there, and that's just the rotation on that. The raccoon actually is mostly a totally flat layer, separated from the background, and then just a puppet pin on the snout. Kathy painted in some new highlights on the eyes for me, and so the eyes are separated, and you can see them looking back and forth, and then the rest of it is going to be puppet pinned. Raccoon is probably one of the simplest ones I think we did. This guy was hard too. But yeah, this is one of my favorite movements in the whole thing.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Just,
he seems like he's got the most going on for like, I mean, maybe not, but he seems the most rigged out of all of them. Like, because he's got like movement in the ears and the little things. His mouth is kind of wobbling all over the place.
Yeah. He's very rigged. In fact, you can kind of see. I have. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but I've got 3 different joysticks and slider controls that control just his mouth. And so when he's like, let me see if I can put him in the middle of the screen. I'll have to undo this after the fact. But when I move these, you can move his head back and forth like that. And so we can go up and down. And there's a little bit of bend and squash. And then I can come over here. And this one is his jaw. And so he can come in and kind of do his little jaw.
That's the way giraffes chew. That really is the way they chew.
Yeah, they chew in a circular pattern.
That's what makes them
fascinating.
great.
And then this is the nose, and so you can kind of get this, like, I can go back and forth, and he lifts his lips up or goes down, and so there's a lot of movement in the nose because their noses and snouts are just fascinating. But
you know what I think is amazing about the way you've built this too is if you ever needed, like, let's say the client ever needed to make a promo with the giraffe talking or something like that, you have this rigged puppet that you could reuse. I think that's just like a priceless ability with the way you've built these files. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah,
I know my After Effects stuff is usually pretty slapdash, and so to have that guy like joystick and slidered to where you can, like that's pretty amazing to see.
Oh, there's the ears.
Yeah, let's zoom in on let's zoom in on our ears here. So we can go a little bit bigger. Okay. And then you just go like this and you have all those different paintings.
And that is like really seamless. Wow.
Yeah. It's so much work. Anyway, the thing that I love animation, but also, you know, it's like, oh, I spent 23 hours on that and it lasted a second and a half.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so crazy. Anyway, I'm trying to see if there's other animals that were rigged in an interesting way, and I can't quite find it. Oh, here's
Well, you
here's
did
Oberon.
the elephant trunk.
Yeah. I was gonna show our bear friend.
there's
So
some mouth.
so he comes in and you can kind of see here. Oops, too close. Back up. No, way too close. Sorry. I'm using shortcuts for the wrong program. There we go. But yeah, he comes in and you can kind of see the thing. And so if you're looking really closely at this, you can see where Kathy had to paint the snout, I think in one or two different pieces, and then the lips and the chin separately, because like the bottom lip is actually coming at you, right? And so as he opens his mouth, it's not like a nutcracker where it just drops. It has to like rotate. And so to fake that rotation, like right here, this lip overlaps this little, I don't know, chin hair or whatever. And so you can kind of see it looks like it's kind of rotating. Anyway, it's also really weird to try to make animals' faces form human sounds, you know, because they don't do that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Anyway.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it was a lot of fun. But yeah. So I don't know how many people are interested in this type of thing, but I thought it would be interesting to talk about like the more nerdy side of this as far as like the project management. And so we used like a shared Trello board. And the first thing that we did, because Marianne said, yeah, how much would this cost? And Kathy and I were like, I have no idea. because how do you say it's not like in most things, you know, it's not like you're ordering a sandwich, you know, it's like there's nothing on the menu. And so we actually built a menu. And so we're like, what are all the different things that we could do with the eyes? Well, we could have the highlight shake. And so I had like, I gathered a bunch of like different examples. And so here's a bunch of examples of like highlights on eyes kind of shaking and like different things like that. And so I went out so that we could show Marianne, like, here's the different things. And then she could make the decisions. And then we did this big chart where we have eyes blink cut, and then we have eyes blink complex. And I think just for fun, Kathy couldn't help herself, and she did most of the eye blink complex, which is where you paint frame by frame every frame of that blink.
Yeah, I'm a freak when it comes to eye blinks.
Yeah, and then we've got nose twitch, we've got mouth smile, we've got lip sync deform, lip sync jump cut, and lip sync nutcracker. And so like the tiger and the bear, the tiger and the giraffe were like the nutcracker where the jaw just moves. But then like the bear and several of the other animals, they were like a transformation of that lip sync. And so and some of these we just had to tell her like, these are the options that you have. You know, you've got ears flick, you've got rotate on ears 2D or rotate ears in 3D. You've got like a head turn, which we did a little bit of on like the giraffe and stuff. But we just went through and we just had this big list of things. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And so then we went through and you can see the different colored aspects of these. I knew how much each animal would cost because we put a price. So Kathy and I said, how much work are you going to do and how much work would that cause me? And we went through and we priced out based on the complexity and the amount of time and the difficulty. And then after we met with the client and said, do you want this animal to blink like this or blink like this? Do you want this animal to turn their head this animal can't turn their head. This animal, the rotation of the ears has to be this way, but it can't be like this. This animal, you can choose between one of the 3 rotations of the ears. And then so we had that big discussion. And then afterwards, I marked everything with what each animal had. And then we just had a punch list of hundreds of different tiny little animations that we had to prep, paint, rig, and animate. And so that, anyway, that's kind of how it worked. And there are probably better ways to do it, but I don't know what they are. Because I mean, this is just the way that it made sense is to be able to say, you know, the fox has a 3D ear turn, a lip sync nutcracker, a complex blink, a dance loop, and their highlight shake. And so we knew as we did each one of these animations, we could check that off the list. The nice thing about it is sometimes you get into these big long projects and you feel like, you know, like it's a never ending thing and you're never going to finish and this is just the rest of your life and you're kind of in jail even though you love the project, but you're like trapped, right? This way I can tell
you have measurable progress.
We've got 27% of the animations done. You know, we've got 80% of the assets painted. You know, and I've got 15 seconds of it animated, you know, or whatever.
That's like, to me, that's a really interesting way you guys broke it down, because it also seems like for pricing for both the client and yourselves,
yeah,
that's a very efficient way to do it, because you know what's going into it, you know the status of the progress, you know every component, and can have a much better way of estimating. Because I always have been baffled by how people price animation. Like because I do, you know, flat illustrations. Sometimes I've done components for animation, but I've never had to do like for hire animation. And I've had to quote it a couple times, and I've always been like, what do I even say? Because I have no idea. I think that's to break it down. I mean, that makes sense. That's what I would do as an art director. So it kind of makes sense,
right.
But it's just the way you broke that down is a really good way to, especially, you know, when you're dealing with a team of 2. And I'd imagine, honestly, if you were dealing with a bigger team than a team of 2, that would become almost fundamental what you had, because it's like the more people, like the more you can't just kind of wing it. Like you guys all have to be on the same page. That's fascinating. I like that.
This is the same process that I used when I made Shades, which I had 8 students helping me with.
Yeah.
And without that, you would never finish anything. Like you have to know who is doing what, you know.
You're like your own project manager basically with it.
Right. And we ran into some wrinkles at the beginning where we would you know, I would say I'm going to work on this, and then Kathy would work on it as well, or Kathy would say, okay, I'm going to do this and this, but then kind of really get going on it and get ahead of what we had planned, and then I might, without communicating, like start working on the same thing. And so at the very beginning there was a little bit of duplication of work.
Yeah.
But then we kind of, and this is almost so pedantic that it doesn't sound it's not creative at all, but it's like necessary, because you hate to be like, well, now we both did the same thing, you know. But we basically had like a checkout system, and so you would check out one of these cards, and if it was checked out, then you wouldn't work on it because you knew the other person was working on it. And so it's like you have one card per movement, or one card per asset, or one card per whatever, one card per task, right? And when you're working on that, you would check it out in Trello. You'd be like, I'm working on this, and then so when it's done, then you moved it to completed. And so I have these boards are like animals, needed, assets for Kathy to paint, assets for Corey to paint, assets ready for animation, animation completed, movement and animations, the, you know, different things like that, and then renders and where those renders are, and we had links to things. We're passing stuff back and forth on Dropbox.
So is that just set up between like so there's a Kathy board and a Corey board, and then the task, and then you just move that, and that's checking out, or is there some kind of a function in Trello that says check out or something?
Yeah, no, we would just move it.
Okay, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
that's if I ever do a collaboration, that makes a lot of sense. I think
That's really
Adopt that.
smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like it. I mean, checking out isn't a bad way of putting it because it's like making your own little library of things that need to be done and then returned.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And it's I'm not trying to exaggerate, but it's almost like a little bit painful when you duplicate work because it's like
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
you know, it is, you know, but yeah, so we ironed that out at the beginning, and it was pretty smooth sailing after that. It was great. What I love about working with you, Kathy, is you have a similar level of dedication and work ethic to me. And so it is very difficult to be collaborating with somebody who is unequal to whether it's more or less. It's very hard to like hurry up and wait or do a bunch of stuff and then be like, you know, or you know, somebody's like pulling like 3 all-nighters in a row and you're like, I need to sleep and have a life. And so I like that we were both working on this at the same pace, and it is, this sounds like bragging, but it's difficult for me to find somebody who is dedicated to getting things done at the same level that I am getting things done. Like that's why it was really nice to work with Jim. It was really nice to work with Kathy, is because
Yeah, Jim said Kathy is Corey's other favorite animation collaborator.
Hi, Jim. I don't know you, but hi.
Have I not introduced you to Jim's cartoons? You gotta. I'll send you a link afterwards.
Please do. Please
they're
do.
hilarious.
Prepare to enter a wacky world of the Luhanaverse. It's amazing.
It's like
The Luhanaverse. I like it.
yeah. It's like if you were to
Is Jim on Instagram? Can I find him there?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. He writes all of his own songs, and so he writes and performs all of the music and scores everything for his own.
Majority of the voices, although he has guests.
He does quite a few of the voices. Malia is a main character voice in his next upcoming feature film.
Oh, cool.
Anyway,
I think we're all in it. I think we're all in it. Weirdly enough.
I have the reputation of always being murdered in Jim's cartoons, which I love. That's my favorite thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But Jim's cartoons are kind of like if you, not nighttime, but not daytime, like kind of at like dusk or twilight, are at like an AM, PM, or a Circle K somewhere in Los Angeles.
Yes.
That's like all of his.
Okay.
You're on a long road trip and you have to pull off at a strange truck stop, and you observe people that you have never seen before that are familiar but strange in like an eclectic Americana kind
like
of way.
I was this is a good description. I had a quarter life crisis when I was 25, and I bought a motorcycle and I drove 3,000 miles down the coast of California and back. And I slept on the side of the road, and I slept in gas stations, in the parking lots, and under ATMs. And the people that I hung out with as I was sleeping in the streets and on the beaches are all in Jim's films.
Okay.
So, I think that's a pretty good, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know. So Kathy, I've been talking too much. Tell me, tips, tricks. What would you do differently if you could go back in time? Collaborating with me, is it as awful as it sounds?
It wasn't awful at all, actually. I would say but this is my problem, not yours. When I get started on, because I'm used to working with people when I worked in my graphics department, but I would do most of the After Effects myself. Mm-hmm. So one of my biggest problems is reining myself in. Right. Once I get started on something, for instance, I painted a good part of the elephant, and then it's like, oh no, I know what I can do. I'm going to start animating it, which was not exactly what you talked about. Was not, I wasn't supposed to do that part, but
it looks really good.
But I would say I don't know what to say. One of the other, I was so glad you put together that whole organizational chart and also the budget, because I remember because most of my career I was told to bill. I was in a in-house graphics department, and it was in terms of hours rather than money. So I was told, how many hours will this take you? And I can usually get that down to a fairly manageable range. But when you say, how much are you going to charge, you want to charge for that? I don't know. I mean, I really don't. I really don't. And I think a lot of artists struggle with that. They just don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know what to, but they also need to make a living, and they also need to not undervalue themselves. So, and that's my problem. That's not a problem with our coordination. That's a struggle that I've had most of my career.
That is a difficult thing, because especially like on something like this, I mean, I was excited. I was like, oh, I get to work with Kathy's. I was excited for two reasons. One is I love your artwork, and two is
Thank you.
It meant that I didn't have to draw and illustrate everything. Like, it was like, oh, somebody else has to do that. That's awesome. But so I was excited because we're friends, and then I was also excited because like the animation is cool. Like the idea of it is fun. But then, you know, it's like, well, we're going to dedicate, you know, months of our lives, you know, in the evenings and weekends, you know, and you're going to put what you would normally do on hold to do this. And so there is a bit of that. And that's where it becomes a little bit easier for me, is because I have to remind myself, like, this is an opportunity cost. Like, there are other things that I would be doing if I wasn't doing this. And that does come at a cost. And so anytime somebody wants me to stop doing what I want to do and to do what they want me to do, you know, then there's a cost to that, financially and from a time standpoint. And for me, there's the cost of like what I won't get done in that time period, you know, and I don't know how you describe that, emotional energy, like, you know, like working for somebody else, even if they're super awesome. Like, Marianne is great. I love Marianne. She's awesome. But anytime you're working for somebody else, there's a bit of a decrease in energy that, you know, it's kind of an outflow of force rather than being able to kind of like take stuff in. And so
I agree. In my case, it was a trade-off anyway, because ordinarily, that the time of year where we were working on this, ordinarily I would be taking on painting commissions for Christmas presents.
Right.
And I didn't because I was working on this animation. But that was okay, because in some cases, I worry more about doing a commission for someone, because I've never had anyone not be happy with what I did for them, but I still worry about it. Where in this case, I already knew that Marianne liked the paintings, that part of it was already accepted. So in some ways, I mean, it was a trade-off. It was a trade-off. I had to give up some other painting work in order to do this, but in my case, that was okay. But and yeah, the other thing is, it is a little emotionally draining, because I did during part of when we were working on this, my husband was having surgery, and I was taking care of him. So, and I did not want to, just like any person who has a family, you always worry, if you're working too hard, are you letting your family down? And I don't think that's just women. I think that's men. I think people who have families, they worry that they're not giving their family enough of their energy and their time. And that was an issue for me. But in the long run, I'm lucky that I got someone who's supportive, and it all ended up working out. And I was, you know, but yeah, I don't know where we've gone down a weird. I've taken us down a weird path now, and I don't know where we are now. But
Oh no,
I think
that's
it's a
fine.
fair path. I think it's the gist of it was, how like as artists we kind of struggle to like properly charge sometimes for art
Right.
or even to know where to begin with it, and yet
Mhm.
valuing your time, because of all the things we've just mentioned, is
Right.
really important, and your time does come at a cost. And what's
mhm,
bizarre is if this were like a complicated like re-roofing your house or
Right.
redoing all your plumbing or your electric in your house, and you're talking a contractor, then it makes perfect sense that they're going to be charging you a hefty fee if it's going to be
Right.
hours, much less months of work.
mhm,
We don't bat an eye at that. Maybe we don't like paying it, but it's like you don't bat an eye at
Sure.
it because it's like, well, I mean, I need insulation in my
mhm,
house or whatever. So it's, I think this has been good because it humanizes the process of the billing. And then I
mhm,
think the part of the brilliance of that Trello thing too is that also humanizes the client,
Yeah.
because I think an animation project can go one way or the other where you're like way undercharging and just going way over budget on yourself, like meaning
Right.
just the time isn't equating to what you're being paid. But there's the other end where you could be like way under budget and totally overcharging a client. And I think that
Right.
having a system like that is really great for both. Like, yeah, it's a scenario like that. But I actually love, Kathy, that you brought that up because it kind of humanizes the art experience. Because like
mhm.
when we're making books and when we're making animations and stuff like that, we have lives, and people get sick. People like we have pets to feed. Like if you love
Yeah.
animals, you've got pets. It's like, so it's just, I think important. So I think that's where we're at.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And I think that's also why I love working with people like Kathy and Marianne, is because you have to kind of be a pretty evil creative to exploit other creatives,
Mm,
and that's why it's great. So Marianne she's a photographer and she is a singer. She's a musician. She's like in a band that like that performs and stuff. And so like she's one of those people that's like I want to make sure everybody's fairly compensated, and like
That was important to her from the
mhm.
very beginning, and how refreshing is that? You
yeah.
know.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't even know how many times you and I said that to each other. Because we're going back and forth, and we always check like, is this all right? I want to make sure that you're, that this is a fair allocation of the work, and that you feel like you're
Mhm,
getting, that I'm not making things harder for you. I'm not, that those types of things, and so, um, it's a lot different than when you're working for, um, somebody who spends their life in a spreadsheet, and they
Yeah.
just look at you as like a line item in a cell in one of their spreadsheets. It's
Or
just
what is it?
like,
A sales guy who's like, I want full aim mignon at fast food prices, and you're like, it's not going to happen. I want it. Make it happen. You're like, I can.
yeah,
Okay. It's
yeah,
like
well,
you're gonna.
yeah, I have definitely worked for people like
Yeah.
right,
that. I had, that very old, rusty, dusty, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Where they say you can get it fast, you can get it cheap, or you can get it good, but you
yeah,
can't. You have to pick. You
Pick
have to
two.
pick two.
yeah,
Well, I used to share that with my old manager.
yeah.
And when I would say that to her, she'd say, "I don't believe that. I think you can have all three." She just no, no.
One of the
Did
I'm
your
not proud of,
manager live in Egypt? Because they're pretty. They're coasting on denial. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
I
Well,
at one
no.
point in time I was given a task for my team, and I said, this is an old thing that I used to do as an art director. I said, okay, which of these things that we're doing would you like us to not do? And they were like, no, I need you to do those two. And I said, okay. I need you to approve overtime or hire more people. I'm not going to do that. So which of these things would you like to not do so that I can do this as a favor? And they're like, I need you to do it all. And I said, there isn't enough time to get that done. And they said, well, that's unacceptable. And this is the part where I'm like, I shouldn't have said the next thing. I said, the laws of physics are unacceptable.
I'm sorry, being a trick nerd, I started thinking Scotty saying I can't change the laws of physics.
Right?
I'm an old tricky nerd.
I was like, I'm telling you, with our current manpower and the limitation on hours and a freeze on hiring, you have to pick a priority.
Yeah.
Anyway, they didn't like that.
That's funny.
That was not a.
So
not
getting a
an
client,
acceptable answer.
yeah,
to
getting
the
a
owner
client
of the
who kind of
company.
gets it or will listen to you, and the
Oh,
other
it's so
thing
awesome.
is, I'm sure it goes both ways, because like once a client's like that with you, like I'm working with a client right now on book covers, great, and like we spent probably way too much time on the phone just talking about how much they value artists, but like really mean it.
Yeah.
And anytime they have like a mild revision, even when I don't want to charge for it, they're like, "Should I pay you for this? Is that okay?" I'm like, "Dude, it's cool. It's like, you know, a 5-second fix on Photoshop. You don't have to pay me for it." But it's because of that, when I do work for him, I want it to be awesome, because he's awesome and he appreciates it. And so that makes me really want to give him the A game. And any client I want to give the A game, but that guy especially, I don't want to let down. Right.
Absolutely.
And I think that goes a long way when you compensate your artists and you treat them well. I think it makes the artists want to compensate you. Like it makes you want to really, you know, go that extra mile and make that ear rotation just right. You know,
I absolutely feel that. I mean, I do. I hope she's not listening, because I don't want her to hold her. I would do anything for Marianne. Seriously, I would. And yeah, anytime you get a client like that, you definitely, you know, and the only thing I can think of right now is we have this auto mechanic in Colorado Springs that we went to one time, and they went above and beyond. So, and they're a client. I mean, we're the client, but still, I will always go to them. I will always trust them, and I would definitely. And I just, anytime you get that kind of a relationship, either you're the client or you're the customer, when you get that kind of relationship, it's everything.
Yeah, it's a win-win. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Kathy, I have
great.
a question about your paintings, just because you know it's been a while since we've talked. Real quick, what got you into animals? Like creating paintings of animals, and then you were talking about kind of the detail that you like to make on the fur, and then the mixed media you use. How have you kind of arrived at the style? Without getting like too heavy.
Let me try to say it without giving you my life story.
Sorry.
Let's see.
Hoping not to open too.
I am my first. How do I say this? I used to like to draw with pen and ink a lot, and I found that I liked doing texture with pen and ink, and I found that that's something that it feels natural to me. And so drawing fur, drawing hair, anything like that has always felt right to me. I actually when I started painting, I was painting children. I was painting portraits of children. And somewhere along the line, I started painting animals. And since I have such a strong, one of the things that I have in common with Marianne is that she feels like she's an animal empath. And I think I am too. I mean, I feel a strong relationship or a strong empathy for animals. And when I see them, any animal, I mean, really, just the other day I was at the zoo, and they had a really beautiful snake out, and I was petting the snake, and even my husband was going, "Ew, I can't do that." I was like, "No." And I'm sorry, the snake was so cute. His name was Puddles. And he was so cute. And I petted him, and I swear he looked at me and he said hello.
Aw.
And I just got into, so I sort of just, I really do have a strong, I feel like an emotional connection with any time I paint an animal. And where that comes from, I'm not sure. But I'm glad it's there. And I don't know how else to describe it. I do like painting eyes. And I think I'm kind of good at painting eyes. And I think I have. I'm also, like I said, I'm a very strong advocate for animals in general.
Mhm.
I'm not going to get on a soapbox here, but I'm a vegetarian, and I donate to a lot of different animal advocate groups, and I also love wolves. And so, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or not. I just sort of spewed a bunch of stuff.
No,
But,
it's actually great because I think it speaks in your work, and I love there's a play with light, and there's like a maturity to your paintings too, because a lot of people when they're doing shadow will just like mix black or something, or like when they're doing light they'll just mix white or mix a lot of water with it. And it's like what I see in your work is like this real attention to like light and shadow and color and the tones of the animals, like even on the fur.
Oh, thank you.
It's just really neat to see. And a lot of the play with compliments and stuff. It's really sophisticated, very nice paintings. So, but
Thank
the
you
love
so
of
much.
that you're putting into the animals really shows.
Josh, I thank you. That means so much to me. Thank you so much. Cool. And there's the giraffe.
That's amazing stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely shows. And I think that, that's actually a good thing for people to listen to too. Cause I think, as artists, we should be pursuing the things we like to draw, or like the things that we feel connected to. Like we should be connected to what we're working on,
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking. Well,
sorry, I was muted. I was saying I like that you say that you have an experience with each animal that you paint like that.
Yeah.
How satisfying. That's so fulfilling to be able to be like,
it is actually
at the end of this, like, do you find that to be kind of like energizing or?
Yes, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. I by the way, all the people who are talking on chat, apparently I can't join the chat, so I'm saying hi to everybody. Oh, somebody worked at a bobcat rescue shelter. That sounds awesome.
That sounds great.
Sam is a cool guy. Yeah.
I want to screenshot this so I can follow everybody on this.
I think the chat is available on the link as well. So after this video processes, you can go back and you can see.
Okay. Yeah, when I try to join the chat, it tells me I need to enter my YouTube information, which
right, yeah, because
I have to have a YouTube account.
Yeah.
And I don't think I do right now. So
yeah, that's okay. Google.
Thank you, Paul.
Google is not the best company to give your information to anyway. So, Paul says dogs don't like him. That's unfortunate.
Paul, I can't believe that. I've met Paul in person. He's a nice guy, and dogs tend to be chill.
Dogs are very, very smart. They're very, very insightful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They know.
Maybe they know the dark side of Paul.
The dark side of Paul.
The part of Paul that writes the villains in Detective Perez.
Right.
Well, put a few dog treats in your pocket, and they'll probably love you.
Yeah, just carry around bacon. Mm-hmm. It'll be good to go. Well, that's great. Anything else, Kathy, that you want to kind of cover before we wrap? We're kind of at about 90 minutes.
Paul says, "Wahaha." I don't think so.
Cool.
I don't know what this.
I don't know where Sam's comment is going. I'm curious about that story.
I don't know what that means.
An albino peacock.
Oh, an albino peacock.
An albino peacock landed on the top of his car.
Oh
That's-
no!
That's
You know what?
Oh my God.
That
That's
kind of
wild.
makes sense because there's a feline compound, not like maybe 20, 30 minutes from where I live, and they have like peacocks everywhere. So I could see that happening at least there. So if it's at all like that, I could see that. But that sounds horrifying.
Is there some kind
Peacocks
of
are kind of cocky.
Yeah.
That's the only word I can
Watch
think
out
of,
for the
but-
males; they get crazy.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
yeah. They're show-offs too.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, I see. Okay, let's read this whole thing. Okay, so the first part of this made me kind of nervous. My first time there, I pulled in. I heard a thud hit my car. All of a sudden, I started hearing something crying like, "My eye, my eye, my eye." And I got out to see what it was, and an albino peacock had landed on the roof of my car. Ran out of character limits on the first one. Their cry sounds like somebody yelling, "My eye."
Wow.
That is a really bizarre story.
I learned a new thing today. I did not know that about peacocks.
Yeah, they're interesting. We have
Thank
a
you,
lot in
Keeman.
yeah. Keeman's great. We have a lot of really interesting wild animals in the Central Coast where I grew up. There's a lot of peacocks and turkeys. Like there's just wild turkeys. Like my buddy used to be like an on-call male postal worker, and so every once in a while he would like go and then like these giant turkeys. Like you don't think of how big turkeys are, but they are big animals.
Oh, they're big.
Would follow him, and they would meet him at every mailbox as he like went around this one.
He's like the turkey whisperer.
Yeah, he's just got all these turkeys following him around.
Oh my
Anyway.
God.
But yeah, so stick around. I think we'll play ourselves out with the animation we've been talking about for those of you that missed it at the beginning. But before we go, Kathy, can you tell us where we can go get this book and where we can commission you to do work?
The book is available on Boopable is available on Amazon. It's also available on Barnes and Noble. And you can reach me through pendragonartstudios.com or Kathy Wilson at pendragonartstudios.com.
And those links
Thank
are
you
all
for asking.
those links are all in the description of this video. And so if you guys want to check that stuff out, go click on
Cool.
that as well. And Josh, where can we find your stuff?
JoshuaKemble.com. You can get 2 stories or Jacob's Apartment, my 2 graphic novels. If you are one of the cool indie kids, you should get one. You don't want to miss out.
Awesome. And you can find my stuff at CoreyKerr.com. And if you want, I'm gonna pitch this hard. If you want like a master's level of information on, like when I say that, I mean education wise. If you want like an advanced degree level information on different principles of design, check out the videos that I'm putting out. I am putting out more information on different types of visual contrast than I think has been collected in a YouTube video before. It is pretty detailed. So check that out and get on CoreyKerr.com/email to make sure that you don't miss out on that. And Scott, where can we find your stuff, and how do we keep track of this crazy show that we're on?
Yeah, Corey. Well, you can find my comic book, including this variant cover done by Corey Kerr. This is for my comic Young and the Dead. It's a kids versus zombie adventure story. It's kind of like Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. So if you're a fan of all those 80s action movies where kids were the protagonists, like Goonies, Monster Squad, E.T., all that stuff, but with zombies, then you'll probably dig this. And also on my website, you'll find digital tools to help you create comics, prints, all kinds of other stuff at my website. I also have a YouTube channel where I look at vintage oddities and ephemera from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, like kryptonite rocks and monster cereals, all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And I do my own version of that. I recreate it. So definitely check that out. Other than that, we do this show every single week, pretty much without fail. We have, but it does require a little bit of searching, I guess, because it's not all today's it's on Corey's channel. Next week it'll probably be on my channel. It may be on a different day. I don't know. I got to talk to these guys about that. But all that is to say that it can get a little confusing. But if you don't want to be confused, just join our mailing list. There's a link in the description of this video. All you do is click on that link, and we will send out a newsletter. We don't spam you or anything. All we do is usually about 30 minutes or so before we go live, we send out that link so you know exactly where we're going to be, who the guest is going to be, what the topic's going to be, what channel it's on, all that stuff. So join that mailing list, and you will be in the know.
Cool. And here's the animation that Kathy and I made.
Boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom. Boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom. Boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom. Boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom. Would you be shocked if you booped a fox? Would you laugh if you booped a giraffe? Boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom. Boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom. Would you be smitten if you booped a kitten? Would you be scared if you booped a bear? Boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom. Boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom. Would you feel lucky if you booped a puppy? Would you find it funny if you booped a bunny?
Do we boop because we love, or do we love because we boop? We don't know, we don't know.
They're just so boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom. Boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom. Would you swoon if you booped a raccoon? If you were beside her, would you boop a tiger? Boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom. Boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom. Boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom. Boop, boom, boom, so very, very boop, boom, boom.
Bye, everybody. Oh, I clicked the wrong button. Now we